How pleased are you with this year's lineup, the way that it's shaped up?
Well, judging by the reaction to it, it seems to be the best lineup we've ever had, because there's music from all genres of music, from Pharrell Williams with hip hop, from Fleetwood Mac to classic rock, to the Prodigy dance music, the Black Keys, a rock band, and Blur, of course, famous band of all time against Oasis. They were one of the best bands ever from Britain. So I went to, not Medina, Carisbrooke School, and gave a speech to the kids there, and they all said, "We can't believe you booked Fleetwood Mac." I said, "But you're 14, how do you know who Fleetwood Mac is?" They said, "We all know who Fleetwood Mac is." So the response has been phenomenal. Well, I've been talking to them both for 6 or 7 years. It takes that long to put these things in motion, because there's not always a tour period that coincides with the festival. So you have to set it up years in advance, effectively. And with Fleetwood Mac, Christine McVie rejoined, and they decided to extend their tour. And they didn't want to do any open-air shows, actually, until they talked to the Kings of Leon and Tom Petty, and they found out what a great time they had at the Isle of Wight Festival, and they decided to do it. So thank you very much indeed, Fleetwood Mac. Yeah, a lot of it is word of mouth. You know, with Paul McCartney, he initially said no, until I reminded him that when Jimi Hendrix first heard Sgt. Pepper, he opened his show with Sgt. Pepper, and I said, "Why don't you come 40 years later and play a Jimi Hendrix song?" And he thought that was a great idea. You come up with ideas that artists find attractive, you know, and the Isle of Wight Festival seems to be on a bucket list for most artists sometime in their career.
Can you remember where you were or what you were doing when you found out that Fleetwood Mac had agreed to come along and play?
I was standing in my bedroom, and I was too scared to open the email because I was convinced it was going to say thanks very much but no thanks, and I started crying when I read it. I read it out to my wife. It was a magic moment. Saturday morning, 10:30. Came from their manager and their agent, because I went directly initially to the manager, because there's more than one manager, because there are 5 people in the band. And he said I had no chance, and what I did was try to surround everyone, talk everybody into it at the same time. You meet the artists involved, you meet them in passing at the Brits, at the Grammys and all that kind of stuff, and people know who you are in the business, and they know who you are and what you do. Dave Grohl knows who I am, he's played here a few times, and he talks to other people about it. So it's definitely, word of mouth is worth having. There's a couple on the list for next year already.
Right, so you're already looking.
One of whom has phoned me, actually.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So you're already looking that far in advance.
As soon as you fully book this year, you start stressing about who you're going to book for the next year. Mm-hmm. It's a full-time occupation. It's never finished. And I got James Bay, I got Jess Glynn, I've got Coasts, I've got the Pretty Vicious, are a great new rock band that only a few people have discovered so far. But you have to predict that they're going to get bigger by the time the event comes, like the Stripes last year, and that's part of the fun of doing it. It's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together, and people discover new bands as they go along. Yeah, I counted up last night with my operations manager how many other attractions there were on site besides the main stage, and we got to 15. There's the Hey Joe Bar, there's Platform 1, which is the local bands, there's the Butlins Beach, there's a new one that I can't tell people about because it hasn't been announced yet. There's two new ones. There's the Bohemian Woods, they're coming back, the Intoxicated Tea Rooms, the Cashmere Tent. It goes on and on and on. Last year was the first year I lost track of how many little stages there were hidden away. You don't want to walk in and see the same thing year in, year out, and we come up with ideas to make it more interesting and fun for people so they have things to discover. There are things certainly this year to discover which you'll only see when you arrive on site. They want an event, they want to lose themselves for 3 or 4 days in something where they feel safe and can have a good time. But it's not just about the music, it's about meeting other people, doing different things, dressing up, hanging out. They just really, really enjoy themselves. I've got Kiss DJs playing dance music, because if you don't like Fleetwood Mac, you're going to like dance music in the Big Top. The Charlatans start playing about 5 minutes before Fleetwood Mac finish, so the Charlatans will be the last band of the event. There are certain things that I just discovered I was walking down Putney High Street, and a kid came running up to me and said, "Are you John Giddings?" And I said, "Yes, why?" He said, "I'm from the Isle of Wight and I play acoustic guitar. Can I play on your acoustic stage?" And he gave me a CD and I liked it, so I put him on. He's called Claydon Connor. But don't everybody do that?
Yeah.
It was a magic moment, just Putney High Street, the middle of nowhere, and a punter comes running up to me, and people send me emails and connect with groups. What happens with me with a group is the first time someone mentions it, I ignore it. Second time it registers in the back of my brain, and third time I think, oh, I better check this group out. You know, there's the Germain sisters coming from Australia. I think if you're prepared to come that far, then welcome. You know, and there's the Shires, who are the first country band to make the top 10 from the UK. There's combos of everything going on. I mean, Pink was really good though, wasn't she, when she flew through the air to the mixing tower and stuff. Never say never. Never say never to Beyonce, Rihanna, Ed Sheeran. It's possible to combine those things together with other things. There's always things that go wrong. That the whole weekend is spent solving problems and putting out fires, but if you haven't set it up properly in advance, you know, it's only small things really. Big things are very, very rare. The big things tend to happen in February when you have to solve them away from other people, to do with the council, the police and all that kind of stuff, the ferry schedules. There's a myriad of problem solving, but that's part of the fun of doing it really. Getting 50-odd thousand people on and off to an island scares me most. The weather. I get a crick in my neck looking at the sky, because however much you plan, however much you set it up, if it pours with rain for five days, it's not as good an event as you want it to be. You know, Mick Jagger says that the audience are always more responsive when it's pouring with rain, but I'd like it to be sunny like today, to be perfectly honest, and it's only April now, so we're on course. The last album I downloaded was the James album, because I really like them, but I've become addicted to a TV show called The Sons of Anarchy, and it has a soundtrack, and so I've got all 4 volumes of that where they play different versions. It's really moody, and you remember the song that went with the scene in the show. That's my favourite at the moment. There's one called Come Join the Murder by the Forest Rangers.
Okay.
If ever I get invited on a radio show, I should play that. There's another TV show called Suits, which has a great soundtrack as well, and it's the first time really I've started listening to a lot of things on Spotify, and there are bands there who I've heard of but I didn't know their music, and certainly it's a way of discovering new music.
What would you favourite 5 songs of all time to put you on the spot?
Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, All Along the Watchtower, Jimi Hendrix, Strawberry Fields Forever. They're all like from 30 years ago. There's got to be an Oasis song in there, you know, Champagne Supernova, and Park Life is great. There's more than 5 songs that are great songs. There are certain songs which would never qualify for high fidelity.
It must be so hard to try and keep things under wraps. I mean, obviously Blur you've managed to just until last week.
But what you do is you lie to people. You pretend nothing has happened even when it's been confirmed. But there are only so many things you can get away with, because somewhere along the line you have to write it down. With Blur, nobody in my office was allowed to write their name on a piece of paper.
Right.
We just called them the Saturday Night Headliner.
And I noticed you were sort of retweeting out a lot of different people's suggestions as well, which was kind of thrown in the odd red herring there.
Yeah, that's to get rid of people, to get them off our backs really. But the people are already beginning to work that one out as well. And you don't want to excite people and make them think it's Pink Floyd or Prince, or, you know, you have to be very careful. I get down there about 10 days before. I oversee all the setting up. I enjoy meeting all the people, watching them arrive, because our staff, you know, we probably have about 40 people who work directly for me, and they have people underneath them, so you have to meet and greet all of them. Then you have to talk to all the groups as they arrive. You try and watch 1 or 2 songs of each of them. The guests arrive. You want to make sure the fairground rides are working properly and the sound isn't drowning something else out. You're forever doing something, large or small. You're always moving around. You're never actually standing still. And then you're waiting for the Red Arrows to arrive because you've told no one they're coming.
That's one of the highlights, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very. Yeah, unfortunately, I forgot to tell Paolo Nutini last time, and he nearly wet himself when they came over the stage because he overran by about 10 minutes, but he got over it. Yeah, we were there yesterday, and we've built a load of drainage channels into the fields, And the fields, I mean, the festival could happen this week if we needed it to, because the fields are so dry. It's the driest they've ever been. And we've built a cycle track with the council along by the river to give access to lorries and stuff round the back. So it's a permanent, ongoing thing to make it better and easier access and more fun for the general public, really. Yeah, people expect a better level of service from loos to food. There's got to be quality food on site. There's got to be different ranges of food, different ranges of loos, different ranges of camping. You know, certain people only come if they can land their helicopter, and certain people enjoy the trek of, you know, driving on the ferry. What I didn't realise with the ferry, and it took me a couple of years to work out, was you're putting people on a floating pub. You're not stuck in a traffic jam for 12 hours. So people arrive merry already, you know. And when my campsite manager said to me, there's 30,000 people here already by Thursday lunchtime, I thought, why don't we open the Big Top and the other fields and have a party night before we actually start the festival weekend? We got Billy Idol and UB40, Gino Washington, no Oasis, because Oasis aren't coming. You know, it's all good fun. That is the problem. If you look at 14 years worth of headliners, all the headliners are still around,
yeah.
But all those bands that were up and coming that you paid a fortune to at the time, like the Thrills or the Darkness, where are they now? It's quite cyclical. You worry about what bands can headline in the future.
What do you think of the acts that are coming through?
I think it's great. You know, George Ezra, Ed Sheeran, James Bay, Hosier, they're all new, exciting singer-songwriters. And they're all coming back to us, you know. When there was Duran Duran Spandau Ballet Culture Club, there was the Specials, Madness, the Selector, there was the Sex Pistols, the Clash, the Damned, the Jam. They come in 3 or 4s, it's like buses, they all come along together. There's a new generation of artists, and we're experiencing one at the moment. You know, if Ed Sheeran can sell out 3 Wembley stadiums, that's pretty impressive on your own, isn't it? I remember REM at the Borderline called Bingo Handjob or something when they were setting up a promo show. That was really exciting. Sex Pistols at the 100 Club. You know, Oasis at Nebworth were incredible. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers at the Isle of Wight I thought were phenomenal, one of my favourite groups of all time. It's hard to nail down one single gig. Roger Waters' The Wall, Pink Floyd at Hatfield Polytechnic. You know, my life is based on going to see music, and every year there's something that really excites me and really gets me going. That's why you do it. Oh, it's incredible. I just remembered David Bowie in Moscow, where the deal was we played the Kremlin Palace, and I'd done a deal for Moscow TV to film the show and in advance for advertising the show. And it was an incredible show, 5,000 people going bananas. But I was staying at the back, and when I went round to the dressing room to get my accolade for having booked it, David was going bonkers. I said, what's up? He said there were people in the front row sitting with their fingers in their ears. They're giving it to the dignitaries. He said, I need to get the film. So I went to the TV director to get the film, and he said, we've sent it to the studio. So I got in some dodgy Russian car, travelled across Moscow to pick up this film, and I'll never forget getting out the car in this back alley, and there was a dead cat there. And I said to my person who was with me, I said, have you got your passport? He said, why? I said, because when they find our dead bodies, they'll want to know who we are. Anyway, I took the film back to the hotel, and David actually edited it and gave it back to Moscow TV. Shows what a professional he is, right? The Stones had a great after-show party at Shepherd's Bush, but you walked in and there were all these women with their hands coming through the wall and touching you up as you walked in, and tongues, and it all gets a bit out of control by about 5 o'clock in the morning. But
try that down here on the island? Is it a possibility as you walk through Medina?
I've seen Fran Healy playing in 4 o'clock in the Premier Inn, having a jolly good time, and Paolo Nutini and James Walsh from Star Sailor. Charlotte Church, she knows how to enjoy herself, because she wandered in at 10:30 the next morning. I said, but I saw you at 4 o'clock this morning, haven't you been to bed? Have you had something to eat? And she went, eating's cheating.
Brilliant.
Good on her, she can come anytime, she's a good lass. I've never seen the Beatles, but I don't know how good they were really, because they stopped gigging before they became a real rock band. You know, they were drowned out at Shea Stadium. I think there's still lots to see because different groups are different in different environments. So you can never say, I've done it all. You're learning something new every day, really. Dave Grohl, definitely. I think he's one of the best people ever. I think Chris Martin from Coldplay is a great singer. Who would I choose as a bass player? John Paul Jones, really, from Zeppelin. Drummer, I'd have Zach Starkey, who was, he wasn't in Led Zeppelin, but he thought he should be, and they reformed. Who did I see him the other day with his playing with The Who, right? He's just really exciting, really exciting. You know, there are just so many good musicians. I think, I mean, I was lucky. I discovered I wasn't a musician at an early stage, but I knew I wanted to be with music and be involved in it. But I think to be talented and be able to play music is a dream gift, really.
Who's your hero, past or present?
David Bowie is my absolute utter hero. I loved working with the Ramones. I love working with Iggy Pop. I mean, James Osterberg, he's one of the best guys. But there's lots of people up and coming. It's not all about the past, it's about the future as well. You know, Calvin Harris is a great guy. Look at him, he had 55,000 people going wild in a field. And I said to him at the Brits, I said, are you sure that was you? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, all I saw was a silhouette going like that.
It's great, isn't it? Must be the best job in the world.
But he's a good guy, good guy. I think it's a bit more disciplined because you can't go AWOL for 3 or 4 days with social networking and mobile phones. You have to be, you know, roadies are an army on the road, although they don't wear uniforms. They actually have to be well orchestrated to make something happen. Characters. Well, yeah, I think the one thing I've learned about working with people who are famous is how hard they work at being famous. They don't just sing on stage. They work the room all day long and they know what they're up to and they know how to enhance their careers. Look at Madonna, one of the hardest working artists of all time. When she fell over on the Brits and got up and kept performing, how cool is that? And it proved that she was singing. The biggest buzz is watching an audience go wild. I'll never forget when Jay-Z was performing. I didn't think an audience could go more wild, and then Kanye West came on with him and it sent this shiver up my spine. It was extraordinary, it's this sensation. Beaten only when I turned around and saw Beyonce standing next to me. That was quite good. Racing driver, I'd like to be a Formula 1 driver, but unfortunately I rolled a car, broke my arm and severed the artery. They took an artery out my leg to save my arm, so I think I'm safer in music.
And that's
a piece of information nobody else knows.
That still allows you still play the guitar as well, though, doesn't it? It's not...
I think play is a strong word. I think strum is a good word. The Isle of Wight Festival belongs on the Isle of Wight.
Not even as an offshoot to keep it here on the island, but to have festivals.
Well, during the year we have festival reunions. We're going to do one at Butlins in Minehead in February with some of the bands that play here. We did one in Coco in London. It keeps everybody together and everybody involved. It's good fun. It's not, to make money, or it's just to keep the name of the festival alive throughout the year. Yeah, this is probably where I feel most relaxed. 6 o'clock in the evening, glass of wine, watch the QE2 sail by. But there's always something you're thinking about. Like, I'm looking at the garden here thinking I should be doing a gig. On a day like this, we should have a couple of acoustic bands and people having a laugh.
Just invite some people around.
Yeah, exactly. Come on down.